What's up, and welcome to Groundbreaking, a friendly original podcast celebrating and sharing the stories of young creatives across the music industry who are embarking on and writing their own journeys. Each episode, we feature a new up-and-comer, discuss their work, and make sure we leave you with a takeaway too. I'm Jake Brewer. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'm joined by Sam Weisband, or maybe better known as @the Wisest Band. Sam is a curator on Spotify, working as the bridge between music fans and the music itself. For artists, discoverability means being playlisted, but today I'm talking with Sam about the many roles that she plays, the content she creates, what you should know about playlist influence, how curators might be taking some of that TikTok exponential growth power, and what we both consider to be the influencers of the music industry. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Groundbreaking. I'm so excited that you are here today because I think this is going to be a very unique episode. It's a conversation that I have never had, but it's a world that I also need to understand and be a part of, and I think is growing so quickly. And so, dare I say, under the radar to some people. You probably don't even know that you need people like our guest today. So I'm really excited for this conversation. I have a ton of questions that hopefully our guest is going to be willing enough to share answers with to us and explore more of what her everyday life looks like. So my new friend, Sammy Weisband, welcome to Groundbreaking.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. I admittedly have done some TikTok stalking, which so if you saw some increase in views, you know where those came from. But I am really just obsessed with the way that you've kind of built and branded yourself as a playlist curator. I think it's really interesting, especially because everyone kind of in all corners of music right now need what you are doing. It's almost like, and I always butcher these kind of comparisons, but like I like as influencer is to like the influenced is like a curator to a listener in a way.
Sure,
Like that,
yeah.
I don't even think people realize probably how much of what they're consuming is intentional and curated by people like you.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. I would not have thought about it before like that. But yeah, definitely, especially like, streaming platforms all have their own playlists. And if you're listening to those from even just the platform, like they have huge teams of people that do that for you and are likely just as obsessed with it as I am, if not more. So
Well, I'm pretty obsessed with certain curators. And I feel like it's almost like a relationship that you create. And I think it's especially interesting too, because I mean, you go the extra mile and you have this brand on TikTok and you're engaging with people in that way too. But I think a lot of people exist as curators just making music for people that have a similar taste to them. And oftentimes we don't even know what their real name is. And we don't know that we're actually being influenced by them. So what made you kind of feel like I want to be a face and a personality, and when people listen to what I've curated for them, they see me for who I am?
I don't think I ever intentionally meant for that to happen. I think
Well, you did a great job.
thank you. I'm so glad and like I love that it did happen, but it was never like um I want people to listen to these and when they listen to these I want them to think of me, like it was not to say that that's what you're insinuating, but I just really liked the playlists I was making and I just really wanted people to listen to it. It was really as simple as that. And then, I just knew I saw TikTok in 2020. I wasn't really on TikTok very much before then and I was like, "Oh, it seems like people are kind of like making careers out of nothing or not nothing, but out of whatever they want just by taking it to TikTok and like kind of hoping for the best, I guess." And that's just what I did and it worked pretty immediately. And I'm very grateful to that because I don't know how much I like really. I mean, it's weird to think about it in retrospect because that's not how it happened. You can never go back
Yeah.
and see how it would have happened. But I don't know how much I would have been able to do that if it didn't happen quickly. So I'm really grateful that it did, and I think the relationship that you're talking about is something that I've only like within the last year kind of realized is happening because it really is me like communicating with people that are listening in a way that means a lot to me. So I can hope that it means a lot to other people, but I think that my whole point and more of like a message behind what I'm doing is like I just want everyone to be able to feel the things that they're feeling, and if I can be kind of a facilitator, it's basically what I am. Like you can call it influencer, you can call it curator, you can call it facilitator, like just being able to it's kind of like my way of being able to be there for people that I wouldn't normally get to or don't even really know like personally.
Yeah, you cover a huge range of emotion and music, and I think something that really makes you stand out is the way that you've kind of paired sound to color. And I think that it's such a testament, and this is why like I call you an artist too, because I think an artist has like the skill of translating across senses. You like, how do you hear something and see a color? It sounds so odd, like to somebody that has maybe never experienced that, but I think that like when you do, you know it, and you go like, oh, this song just feels like the color blue. And I think that's because like I also am a very visual person. That's the way I've always like learned. So do you
Hmm.
feel like was the purpose of that to just kind of create like a some identity, or was there like an inspiration that made you go like, oh, this is how I feel music? And are you a visual person like that you almost like need something more in a way to define a music further to make it mean something to you?
I am definitely a visual person. And I think that it was a random thing that happened. Like I didn't go through most of my life being like, oh, that's blue, that's whatever. And maybe I was doing it the whole time, but it wasn't something that I like really acknowledged until it was quarantine and I like had these like colored pens and I was like I like had just gotten no, how did that happen? Okay, so I got these colored pens and I was like making a playlist and I was in this huge depression music rut and like I just moved from Arizona to LA and I was like I just need to like get into a different like groove. I need to like hear different music, and music has always just been something like very profound for me. So I like started listening to like a bunch of different music and it was just like it seemed very divine. Like just like I it was some of like the best music I had ever heard. And so I just like put it into a playlist and I was like, how should I like someone asked me if I was gonna order it and I was like, oh, people do that. I don't know. And so I ended up being like, oh, well, I'll just like order it by color. And so then I did that and made the playlist in the order of like how the songs felt by color.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, that's a like cool fun thing to do for like making a playlist. So then I just did that for like 5 colors that just like I thought represented certain emotions, and those were the same colors that I would like journal with and like write my feelings in. So like every feeling had its own color. So then I was like, oh, okay, well that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Um
Do you think the like the people that have then now grasped upon the way you organize that, are they looking for that conclusion that you created, but they just don't have to create it themselves? Like, do you think they had that feeling too of like, I say like associating, not necessarily in an organizational purpose, but just for the like the composure of taking art into something that feels, or they understand it like deeper? Do you think built that bridge and that's why people connected with it?
I hope so. I like to think so. Yeah, I would like to think so. I think that what my playlists do is just make listening a little bit more fun. That's all that my goal is. Like, I don't think that anyone needs to feel the same things I'm feeling when I'm listening to XYZ, and or like even there's people with synesthesia that like disagree completely with my version, which is totally fine also. Um but yeah, I think that it's just like it's a good way to be a little bit more creative and really like mundane things, you know?
Yeah.
I think like listening to music can be very similar to like watching a movie if you want it to be.
Yes, I
But
agree completely.
a lot of people would find that I think a bit boring with the amount of dopamine we have swirling around our phones and our
Yeah.
brains. So I think yeah, I hope that it's a way for people to kind of maybe just even sit with your feelings and just listen to good music and be like, yeah, I am feeling like that, you know, like something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting point because I was thinking a lot about like the bridge that you build between an artist and a fan then. Like you are essentially the catalyst in discoverability, which is I almost feel like that is even an understatement to what it is because of the mass way that like we find so much music. You ask I mean, I've at least asked everybody I know, and they discover new music because of a playlist. What kind of role do you think you play in the way that a fan connects with an artist and vice versa, the way an artist sees their fans? Are you just the catalyst in that, or are you literally building something that wouldn't have existed otherwise?
I think it could be both. I think for me, what I've found in like doing literally so much fucking listening to music like
Yeah.
all the time, and I would be listening to music all the time regardless, but like now it's like for a purpose, and I have found that, you know, sometimes I'll listen to a song and be like, not really into it. And then I'll find it again months later and be like, oh my God, this is such an amazing song. And it's all because of where I am in that moment.
Hmm.
So to bring it back, I think that hopefully what I do is help people find music that is tailored to where they are right now.
Yeah.
And there are so many artists like Alt J is one of my favorite artists. And Alt J has been around for forever. And I just started getting super into them in 2020. And I've heard their songs before, you know, I know Breeze Blocks and Fitz Pleasure and whatever. But it wasn't until 2020 that I was like, oh my God, like these are
Yeah.
amazing songs. And I think that maybe what I can do or what any curator can do is just deliver more artists that either A, you didn't know, or B, you weren't paying attention to, that can become your favorite. And I think that that's like the thing I'm most excited about is just being like, hey, this is your new favorite song. You know, like that's such a powerful feeling to like connect with something in that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Do you feel like, and maybe there's no right answer to this, but do you feel like who's benefiting more in that, action? Is it the artist or is it the fan? Or is it just, apples to oranges? Like you can't really compare that benefit.
gosh, I think it's so intertwined. You know, like the only reason that an artist makes music is, of course, because they love making it, but so people can connect with their music. And the only reason that a fan listens is so they can connect. So it's I think it's really symbiotic in
Okay.
that way.
Okay. I think I would agree. I think I would agree with that because I feel like so much artist development and strategy is going at playlists right now. And I feel like maybe even
Mhm.
more so the majority of that motivation is still looking at TikTok for that, outlet or that
Mhm.
resource. but I do think there's a lot of artists and teams behind them who are shifting to look towards like the playlist community, because if somebody's already curating exactly the kind of music that people enjoy and want to hear, and they're engaging people routinely and they're updating this, like that is such a niche audience. If you find the right curator and the right playlist, it's almost all but guaranteed a listener will react with that artist's new song as well. Do you see it kind of in the same way, or like do you kind of feel like a listener is like one off, they like the playlist, they listen to it for a little bit, or do you feel like they kind of keep coming back to it? Like how deep is that relationship?
I there's a lot of metrics that I just don't know. Like I don't have, as a curator, like you don't have any statistics behind anything.
Yeah.
So, but my hope is that someone will hear a song and be like, whoa, 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 who is this? And then go to that artist and listen to their entire discography and then come back. Like
Nice.
that is what I would hope for, because I'm really just like, I guess like a messenger, really, just someone that is like, here's all this, take what you like, leave what you don't. And hopefully they take more than they leave. But yeah, I think that in terms of like coming back, the updating of the playlist is like pretty significant. And a lot of like Spotify playlists or I don't know. I only use Spotify, but I'm sure other platforms, I don't know how frequently they update.
Yeah.
So for like independent individual people that are curating, we're always looking out for that kind of stuff and like revamping. So hopefully that brings more people back too.
Yeah. Okay, this is the top question I have for you.
Okay.
Do you feel like curators are making the trends or aligning to the trends?
Aligning.
Okay.
I
Dare
think
ask
aligning.
why?
Sure, yeah, please do. I guess it really could be either, but I feel more aligned with aligning, because at the end of the day, like, here's one way to look at it. Depending on how I get my music, sometimes I'll play like a radio, or it'll be like suggested for you, and that is a trend. Like those things are already, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a great song, and then I'll hear it on TikTok, and then people will be like, that song has been blowing up on TikTok, and where the fuck have you been? So
Yeah.
in that way, I'm just finding music that sounds the best to me. But I think that I don't really have control over what sounds the best to me. And if music is shifting in certain ways, I can shift along with it, just so long as those certain ways align with my personal listening. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you bring up a point too about like algorithmic listening that I think is a point that I hadn't even considered prior to this, of like, do you think I have so many questions for you.
Yeah.
Do you think you can curate for a listener better than an algorithm could?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think so too.
I sure hope so. Yeah, I think about that from time to time, because that's all, if I said no to that, then why am I even doing anything?
Yeah.
But
well, and are all these like kind of algorithmic things gonna like, are they gonna push out this curator space? Like if these algorithms of like, your daily mix, your radios, whatever, are those gonna like, if they get better, could they like, maybe hurt the kind of people who are, kind of stepping into this curator role?
I think that I try not to operate from a point of view that could happen, and I'm, aware that sure, that is something that maybe could be of concern, but not for me. I feel like it's kind of like a similar, we could like make a comparison to the AI stuff that's been coming out
Yep.
and happening, and everyone's getting really upset that it's taking away from you know, artists that paint or, you know, digital
Yeah.
art, all that kind of stuff. I personally feel like, yes, we could get upset about that, but it is the way the world is moving. And the one thing that AI will never have over an artist is it's a computer.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have I think, you know, going back to like why I do all of this is that there's no feeling in it. So yeah, you can give me the same songs and not the same songs, but you could give me like an assortment of songs that do sound really great together and that make a lot of sense together. But from the perspective that I'm at, like, I feel that there are very specific reasons why certain songs are in certain places, and there's very specific reasons why certain songs are not in certain
Yeah.
places. So there's a it's a real nuanced art
Yeah.
form. And
That an AI or algorithm can't calculate.
no, I don't, I mean, at least not right now. And if that happens, then the AI still won't be me. You know, it won't have my
Yeah.
um however I like to do things. And if people are resonating with how I like to do things, then it shouldn't be an issue whether an AI is doing something similar because it's not me.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think too, like the way I almost like hate to transition into this because I feel
No, go for it.
you're gonna be like, this is a conversation that's overdone, but I think there's a corner of it that hasn't necessarily been talked about as much,
Yeah, go
of
for it.
like of TikTok as a music curator, and like pushing like what's real and what's trending. But I also like influencer marketing has shifted to like pay micro influencers to make content to specific songs on TikTok now. Like it's not as organic as maybe it once was. Is like a shift that's similar there in the way that it's not like as transparent or maybe as grassroots or humane, dare I say, like in a way. Like is that going to happen like on these like DSPs like a Spotify and an Apple Music or a Tidal or Amazon, whatever people are using? Is that going to like happen there? Like could it become like a pay to play game? And if so, like who is that going to like hurt the most?
um that's a good question. Well, I mean, as of right now, it's illegal. You
Yeah.
can't do that on streaming platforms. Um I do think that it happens. Um and I don't know if every single thing gets checked that happens on Spotify. A lot does. Spotify doesn't let most people get away with that. But you know, like there are definitely shady things happening, I think, on streaming platforms. And I think that it's just kind of the way that the world is gonna
Yeah. Go.
work.
Do you,
I don't think that that will be like like I don't think that that's going to like ruin listening. And I think it's a good reason why like you have trusted curators and you have trusted people, especially people that are on TikTok. You know, I have, I'm sure you have, and follow like amazing music curators on TikTok that like
yeah.
are really passionate about not letting that happen, myself included. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I hope that wasn't a negative outlook,
No,
but
no. Well, does that thought even like sit in your mind at all, or does it just seem like, God, I don't mean to be so pessimistic about it, but like
no, no,
is it
no.
just so out of everyone's control that it's just like if it happens, it happens. Like it's almost not even worth building against.
It's definitely not something that anyone can control that is in. the position that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, it's a very similar thing to like the AI question where it's like, or the algorithmic question where, these dark forces quotation are,
Sure.
around in every industry. And I think that it's important to just do what you're doing and talking to people that actually like care about moving in the other direction and care about integrity and making sure people get a very authentic listening experience. So to sum up, I guess we just don't think about it.
Yeah, which
That's all.
hey is fair. I don't see like why you would. I'm just curious too, like as I think there's so much potential for like the role that you're in to grow and become a lot more integral within the music industry. I also like, I worry that there's already forces that see that as a threat in a way, or something that we can manipulate to be the same, just like other things we've, monetize to then become like less and make it harder for music to be something that is an emotional connection rather than somebody who has the biggest wallet. um
Right, right. I think it's valid. That's a valid concern and question. But I think that we just gotta hunker down, stay strong.
yeah, well, and I feel like too, as I say, like, there's a lot of pay to play that's happening on TikTok, but I do feel like there is still that element of like a young musician, even if they make something, simple that ends up on your For You page, and then you see that, and then you can kind of step into the role like we were talking about of just like of helping, younger artists reach more people. There is those routes still exist too, and maybe we need to find more comfort in that. But as we're
Hmm.
talking like on a larger music industry scale, do you think like, and again, maybe you're just like, I don't care, which is like fine too. Do you think like labels and these A&R people and whoever's sitting in these corner offices, floor to ceiling windows, should those people be looking at TikTok as much as they do, or should they be looking at people like you?
I think right now, I think that it's an interesting question because the more people that look to TikTok, the more they need to look to TikTok. So let's say
Hmm.
everyone stopped looking to TikTok and just immediately was like, okay, let's just put all our marketing into Spotify and like these independent curators and see, what they do. But that would be a very serious shift from what we've
Yeah.
been seeing over the last like 2 years. So you know what? I think that maybe labels should be looking toward people or accounts that um, have a really organic um, audience.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where things can kind of align in a more, I don't know, I don't want to say healthy, but like healthy way. But then I don't know because that's my opinion, and I think that if you want a bunch of streams, which is what they want, you should just give it to people that dance on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, if that's your goal,
Right. If you just
go for
want
those
streams,
people.
then go for it. But I mean, and we've seen that the songs that blow up on TikTok will get listens for, I mean, years,
Yeah.
years to come. So yeah, I mean, it is a viable route for sure. I think like we were talking about with like an artist connection to their fans, I feel like where you're going to get like the most connection is from like organic audiences and
Yeah.
people who are like, I'm obsessed with this song. You guys should listen to it. And then everyone's like, holy shit, this is like the best song ever. And I'm connected to it in a way that isn't just like, oh, I heard the song on TikTok. It's cool.
Sure, because it's a completely different goal, whether you're trying
Hmm.
to, you know, become, uh, for simplicity's sake, mainstream versus indie. Like although those words mean something different, like a little bit now, which is ironic, but you're right. Like, if you just want the tons of streams, like there's one way to go. But if you want that like small loyal group who will show up to everything and will go hard for
Yeah,
you, like then
yeah,
it's a completely different route. And I do
yeah.
think sometimes that gets blurred a little bit. And I would presume that you're kind of catering more towards the people who want the niche loyalty, the like ride or die fans, because it sounds like that's who you feel like you are to your favorite artists.
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like good people on TikTok that are coming to mind right now are PD. Have you heard of PD?
I
He does
haven't.
all the he I bet you've seen him. He does
Okay,
these like
probably have.
hilarious he's done these hilarious like sketches, and then he also happens to like make music, and it's phenomenal, and his like fans are like he has such a like great personality, great content, and his music's fire. And then you have people like Haley Knox, who
Hmm.
are on TikTok, and she like randomly got a looper and just started doing these like crazy talented like loop sessions on TikTok. And then you have people that are following her because she's so talented.
Yeah,
So it's like, you could do these super organic, super cool, like just really amazing things to watch, and just great content. Like, yeah, so I think that those are two people that are actually on TikTok and also making music that I think do both really, really well.
yeah. In your case, in the way that you're kind of creating additional content for people to connect with you deeper, is it a similar purpose like that they're doing? Like they're creating an extension of their music to give more of them for people to enjoy. Do you think the way that you kind of create more to give people more to enjoy, is that making you stand out in the curator scene? Or do you think people are, I hate to say the word oblivious because I don't mean that, but like who maybe aren't recognizing that people are curating what I'm listening to?
Mm, could you phrase that in a way that is a
Yes.
little bit more summed up, just so I remember?
Yes. The way the way that, well, this is me too. I'm classic for going like, as mid
No.
question thinking of a new question and then taking over. That's peak me. Um like, cuz we're talking about how these people are, kind of creating something unique on an additional space, that space being TikTok, that
Mhm,
then translates over to a Spotify or an Apple Music to be their action item. Like that is, I would presume, their goal. Do you feel like the
mhm.
way that you've created content and to kind of expand what you do and who you are, and really even just give like a face to like when people are listening, what kind of benefit does that have to people that are listening to your work? And do you think that kind of helps maybe people appreciate non-algorithmic curation?
I would like to think so. Um, I think that for me, the playlist curation and the content curation happened so in sync that it
Hmm.
wasn't like, oh, here's all my followers on Spotify and now I'm gonna grow a TikTok. It was like the same week I gained
Sure.
70,000 Spotify followers. Like it was so.
Were were those
Go ahead.
cause and effect?
Yeah, it was
Like,
TikTok, and then immediate. It was like TikTok blew up, Spotify happened, and then I'm like, oh, cool. so,
yeah.
so I guess I'm gonna try to answer your question. I think I think that it definitely plays a role in like what you're listening to, and I do feel like it is kind of a weird relationship that I do share with my followers that I guess is sort of similar to maybe what an artist shares with theirs, but in the case that Petey or Haley, like they go on TikTok and then they get those numbers on Spotify. I'm getting numbers on Spotify, but it's not um the number of streams I get on a playlist doesn't affect anything for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just purely like have some music, enjoy, and like my TikTok is a place where I can share how my brain is kind of like doing the
Yeah.
other stuff, which I think
Yeah.
is maybe helpful for people who really want to do what I do, or just maybe cool to see if you like listening a lot. But
Yeah.
that's just an assumption. I have no idea what anyone
Well,
thinks.
it I guess could be seen as a way to enrich the people listening's experience, but it also just enriches your own experience in what you do. I feel like
Yeah.
you just have that passion. It almost sounds like you would be doing it anyway. Like whether anybody was watching or listening or not, like those two things are going about because you are so purposeful in the way that you listen to music, let alone, put something together and bundle it up for people. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's I think that's really interesting. And one of the things I did want to ask you too is how you build like a curator following, because you're right. It's not like something that, I mean, you can see some numbers like publicly, but like a lot of the time, like, yeah, you can't tell how many people are listening to this place actively. You can see how many people liked it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're listening every day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define then success as a curator? Maybe just in general, but then also just you personally. And then how can somebody grow a curator following if they want to kind of enrich themselves and they have the same passion as you?
Great questions. How do I define success as a curator? I should really be asking myself that, honestly. Gee, I guess the only thing that that I can measure is how much I like what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And really, if I have one like or one person who is along for the ride, then like that's amazing that I'm doing, the numbers really like don't actually matter, which is something that I do have to tell myself repeatedly.
Yeah,
But
and
but
a lot of people do. Yeah.
yeah. I think that and there's been times where very recently, kind of in the middle of that, but there's been times where I can't listen to the playlist because they get so stale.
Hmm.
And that is a sign that I'm not being successful. So to take it the other way, it's hard to define success when you don't have anything to measure with, kind of, but I think it is such an independent kind of job that you can really only measure it by how you're feeling about what you're making.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, just making sure that you're staying true to your taste and not letting any other kind of outside influence get in the way of what you're trying to create, and just doing it because you love doing it and there's nothing else that you would rather be doing. And maybe the success is just being able to commit to doing what you love to do.
I think that's great. We never even really touched on either the upkeep of
The upkeep is intense. We can touch on that if you'd like.
because I'm thinking, like, oh yeah, it's not as simple as curating once and then it's done. Because people follow for updates. They can have something. I mean, most of the time, like I guess I'll like something so it saves on my little sidebar.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know a lot of times, like it is nice, and Spotify can call you out with how long it's been on that playlist, they will let people know if you haven't updated it in a while. So
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, is there a pressure there? I guess I'm wondering.
Um the pressure comes with the fact that, there's some playlists that I'm not going to listen to all the time. I'm not going to listen to Red, which is just like very aggressive, intense music for when you need to like let off some real steam. That's definitely not in my heavy rotation all the time. So it's like the pressure is like, well, how do you there are people that love that kind of music all the time, and power to
I
them,
would probably
as if they
listen
need
to it a
any
lot.
power.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Good
And
to
I
know that
love that.
exists.
Oh yeah, it's and like there are people that specifically like love that one. So I have to make sure that I'm not like leaving people out just because I don't listen to it all the
Hmm.
time, but there are other playlists that I do listen to that I do listen to more often, I should say, that like I can tell very easily when things are kind of like going out. So I guess the pressure is like just keeping up with things and making sure that it still sounds good to me, because once again that is the only measuring tool I have. So
Sure.
um just that's something that I'm really trying to be a little bit better at, is just like once a week or maybe bi-weekly or however many
Yeah.
times a month, just like going through everything, being like, okay, that still hits, this is good still, let's get those out of here. And then also the upkeep, you have to understand. There's a lot of sometimes, like recently, because I haven't been the best about it in the past year, I've gone through them and been like, oh my god, I can't believe that's still on there, like I have to take off 15 songs. And then I just kind of do, because I'm like, I can't, like it's like a very personal affront to
Yeah.
myself. But then I put those playlists or those songs into a playlist where people can find them, because otherwise I have people with pitchforks coming at me. No, that's
Coming
just
at
what I
you.
imagine. I'm like, they're gonna be so mad, and I have no idea who's actually
I
even
never knew you
listening.
operated as a therapist so much. I didn't know that was a thing, which I'm really glad that I know now, because maybe I'll even be more
Oh my
aware
god.
of it in my own listening of like what
How
this does
so?
for me. Well, because
Yeah,
I
I mean,
I have my favorite playlists, and I have the things that like I go back to, and I think a point we didn't even touch on is like how niche a playlist can get to. I think the way that you've organized into colors is so right, and you can see there's so many people that have, I'm going to butcher saying it, but you mentioned the synesthesia
mhm.
of it all, like that is such a clear way to get people onto there too. And I hope people like recognize like, oh, what a beautiful way to package you know something. It's like building a track list as an artist. You're trying to bundle everything so purposefully, and I think any artist would probably agree like that is so much more difficult than it sounds, because there's a story in the way, in the order that things are told too, and there's also a story in the way that things are grouped. And it's insane to me that music has become that it's become so massive that you can indulge it in that way, and we become
Yeah,
so intricate in the way that we absorb music too. And
it's
thanks to
true.
the rise of streaming, like that, this is now an
Yeah, I
opportunity that
mean,
you have.
if you even want to go back before streaming, like people were making mixtapes throughout the 90s
Yeah.
and early 2000s, and like I was a little girl back then, so I don't know, but I imagine that people went off with that. I mean, like the mixtape itself was such a massive shift in the music industry. Like the second that people were able to do that, we basically were like gung ho, like
Yeah.
let's curate. Like literally everyone is a curator in their own way, even if they make I have a lot of people that are like, how do you keep so organized? Like all my playlists are like 5 songs. I'm like, but you had a vision, you just didn't
Yeah.
complete it.
Yeah.
Like it's just a matter of, like I said, like when we were talking about success, like I really think that it's just staying committed to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hopefully it's not very difficult because you really enjoy it. But
You're right.
yeah.
It comes naturally if you're meant to do it. Some things take a ton of work and some things are difficult to do. I will preface with that, but you're exactly right. I have two more questions for you. The last one is the one I
Shoot.
always end with, but the
Mhm.
first one kind of being I feel like I've given you so many pessimistic questions today.
That's okay. I'll battle them
But
all.
okay, great, because here's one more. Um,
Okay.
is like okay, I'm gonna ask this question and then I'm gonna reword
Mhm.
it to make it sound less awful and not put you in this position.
Oh my
Like,
god.
is it even worth it for an artist to reach out to you to share a song? Okay,
Oh
now I'm
my
gonna reword
god.
it. Now I'm gonna reword it. Okay, see, because that's an awful. Because imagine if you said no, like everyone would be like, "Oh my god." Um, I guess I mean like, do you see what you do as like as a service to like the fan, and it's a way to kind of curate like outside of the marketing strategy of it all, or like, or would it be really different maybe if an artist was like, I'm a huge fan of your playlist, like I made music based off what I love and I love your playlist, like it's not as, you know, god, I'm fighting for the word, but like not as like scammy or intentional, because I know like so much of that exists as we kind of touched on. So I won't tee it up in the way that I first did because that's so rude of me. But you know, like, is that action there? And if so, what's the best way for that to happen? Because there probably will be artists and such that listen to this podcast. And I want to make sure that they, you know, there's so many ways you can promote music now. I want to make sure we're both putting them in the right avenue.
Yeah, of course. I think it is 100% worth it. And that's
Okay.
not just to say, I have a website where you can submit for a review or submit for feedback. Neither of which, I should just say this legally, neither of which will land you on a playlist if, I have to you're just pay if that were the case, if that's what anyone decided to do, you would just pay for the review or the feedback,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
for
A
any of that.
placement. Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly.
Just thought I'd get that out of the way. But um I there's nothing more satisfying to me than finding an artist who no one has really heard and they blow my mind. Like there is
Hmm.
nothing more satisfying. And to put people on to artists like that who are going to shape the next generation of listeners and artists, like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
That said, like it is about quality for me. So I think that it's always worth it, I think, to get feedback from people that you trust. Whether that be me, whether that be another curator, whether that be your mom, like
Yeah.
I think I think that's always worth it. And I think that also you could flip and say that whatever you think is good is good. You don't need my approval for it. I'm just someone that could potentially help you. And if you want to reach a larger audience, curators are a great way to do that. And we're people that you can message on Instagram and talk to. You can't really do that with a Spotify playlist.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um so I'm
Right.
all I'm all definitely, yes, absolutely worth it for as a curator. If you want to go to me, worth it if you want to go to Casey's playlist or Annabelle on TikTok, do it
Amazing.
because it's 100% worth your time. Yeah.
Great. You took an awful question from me and answered it perfectly. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
The very last question that I want to ask you is how I like to end every episode. I gave it to you early so you could think about it, because I always hate to put people on the spot with this one. But I ask it because I feel like a lot of the times I listen to podcasts similarly to like this one, and part of the reason why we made this one happen is because to kind of solve this, you know, kind of issue that I have with a lot of these is the advice for people is always so, I'm going to be careful, like surface level, in a way that like I feel like I can't wake up tomorrow and do something. It's like it's almost mentality based, and it's really really hard to define steps to, you know, how we define success today then there's so many different paths to it. So I want to ask you, people have spent just about like an hour listening to your work, and me just harassing you with difficult questions. So I want to know, like, if somebody has another hour right now, and we can be specific, it can be if they want to do exactly what you're doing, or if they're just passionate about music in some sort of way, or not even music, no matter what it is, you can adopt it on whatever scale you would like. What is something that they can do that's tangible, actionable, and at the end of it, they'll be like, I am one step closer?
Yeah. Okay. So when you mentioned this earlier, the first thing that came to my mind was to just, and this is another kind of cliche sort of thing, but it's the most tangible, actionable thing I can think of. And it is literally do the thing. If you want to be a playlist curator, go make a playlist and stick to it, and you can do it in an hour. You can literally, and what I think that what also came to mind and that I find is sometimes I'll be like, oh, I got to do that. Like, I have to do that. I have to make this or create that or whatever it be. But once you just sit down and just start doing it, if it is something that you genuinely love doing and it's something that is going to carry you through the next if you want it to be your career, whether it's an artist or a curator, like, you're not going to get anywhere by thinking about it.
Yeah.
You just have to sit down. And then there's that whole flow state that happens, and then you do it and you're in the middle of it, and before you know it, it's midnight and you're like, oh my God, I have to go to sleep. I've been doing this for so long. I haven't even eaten anything, because you're so in it. And that's the best feeling ever, is to just be like, oh my God, I just lost track of time because I was so invested in the thing that I'm doing. I think that's like what especially creative people like love the most, is just being able to like put whatever's in your brain, whatever's in your heart, just put it on something somewhere. Just sit down, put your phone away.
Yeah.
Put your messages off your computer. Put your earphones on. And do what you got to do. And yeah, make it fun. Smoke a bowl if you want. Have a good time. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
I hope that helps someone out there.
I feel like it will. I feel like it will. Sammy, you've been so generous and transparent today. I thank you a ton, not only for myself, but everybody who gets to listen. And I really look forward to continue listening to what you're listening to.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing.
Thanks for joining me today on Groundbreaking. If you want to listen to Sam's work and get to know her a little bit better, you can connect with her at the Weisband. That's WEISEST. I'll be sure to share links to her playlists and socials in the description so you can listen too. Be sure to stay tuned for more next time on the show, and as always, be sure to rate and comment on the show from wherever you're listening. You can also connect with me at Jake Brewer Music across all social channels, and see more of what Friendly's up to at Friendly Media, or by visiting friendlymedia.com. That's FRNDLY Media. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next time for more Groundbreaking.